point out as well, it naturally led to problems because the workers, particular workers of the silver category, I mean, could see discrimination. Not just in terms of the facilities, the difference in facilities, but particularly the difference in wage levels, when in fact the skill levels might have been the same. I mean, and let me put it this way, most West Indians, including most Barbadians, found themselves in the unskilled category, therefore getting paid the lowest wages, no matter what the real skill level was. So I'm saying that is the sort of thing which caused a lot of industrial difficulty throughout the building of the canal, and gave the West Indians a bad name too. They were, the employers thought they were lazy and all of that. But of course, that is what you say when people start to complain about the conditions of employment. So, if a little bit more quickly on that, these silver people would have been classified in a number of ways. At the lowest level, there would be boys. People who took the light job being paid between 5 and 7 cents an hour. Then there were 3 categories of laborers. So again, unskilled, doing really unskilled work, A, B, and C, and therefore there were categories of pay. So the further you went up the alphabet, the higher your wage was. And then of course there were the artisans, but any examination will show that there were very few West Indians, including Barbadians naturally, who were in the artisan group. These are the people who got paid at the rate of between 40 and 84 cents an hour. These jobs usually were reserved for white Americans. As I said already, this is to some extent an export from the United States, particularly an export from the southern United States. So it is not surprising to any of us who look at it. It will be surprising to any of you who have it as well. So the other thing that we need to say about these silvermen is that they took the brunt of the work. They took the brunt of the work in terms of what they did, as I tried briefly to describe it. But they took the brunt also too, in terms, you might say, of the perils involved in that work. In other words, the industrial accidents which you would expect. The exposure to disease. Panama was described as a pest hole, meaning, of course, malaria, yellow fever, any disease that you could find was there, particularly in the early years. By the later years of construction, the situation had improved immensely, but certainly in the first few years, these things, disease was rampant, and therefore the mortality rate was high. And it was the silvermen, it would have been the silvermen who would have borne the brunt of that. So that, I'm saying therefore, when therefore you want to think or reflect on the Caribbean labor contribution to the canal, the 2 things to bear in mind would be they did the backbreaking labor, but they at the same time were paid the lowest wages, and third, of course, they were exposed to the greatest hazards. And as a result, more of them died than any of the other workers. That is the proportional terms, of course. Now let me just say quickly something about the impact. The impact on Panama, of course, the impact on Panama is one I've already stated it to some extent, because in a way you can say they built the canal. But more important, you might say that their presence started the creation of Panama as a multicultural community. Because you see, these people were different in every possible way. We reflect upon it quickly. They spoke a different language. The Spanish was the language of Panama. They spoke a different language. Most of them had a different religion. They were Protestant, Anglican, when Panama would have been Catholic to a large extent. And of course, most of them were black. So you can understand, therefore, that this was new for Panama. And you might say that as a result, Panama has been altered forever as a result of their presence, because as I indicated earlier, a lot of them did not return to their own countries, whether it was Jamaica or whether it was Dominica or whether it was Barbados. But one consequence of that is that a lot of Panamanians got disturbed by their presence, and this would be after the canal was finished, and so many of them settled because it looked as though they were that they now became foreigners, which according to some of the nationalists were in a sense infecting the country. So, but in the 1920s and the 1930s, they came under intense attack. More migration from these islands was banned. Some of them who were there were denied citizenship. So that you can understand, therefore, the reaction. It was a reaction of the host community to these different people. It is happening in a lot of societies. So again, we can't be too surprised about that. We will say a little bit more about that in a minute, but I would think that we can leave that point there and come quickly then to the impact on Barbados. The impact on Barbados, I mentioned one of the impacts right from the beginning. That is demographic, what it did to the population. If 1/3 of your population disappeared, you understand what in fact what that means. And particularly if that 1/3 included mainly men, okay? So already then, most populations have a built-in majority of women. So if in fact more men migrated this way, you understand what is the consequence. And obviously that has some impact, not just on family structure, it has some impact too even on employment. So that is a point that is worth noticing. You could also say that the migration was a little bit of a corrective or correction of some imbalances. If Barbados was seen as overpopulated, in other words, having a surplus population, but then of course the migration tended to redress that balance, and in turn, therefore, might have improved employment opportunities for those who stayed at home. We have to look more closely at that. But the most important evidence of impact would have been seen in what is called Panama money remittances. That was the thing, remittances. So much so that that is being described. Migration is being described, particularly Panama migration, as a valuable foreign investment for Barbados. In fact, it remains so. All migration has remained so for Barbados. So the remittances are important, and Morris will be telling you a little bit more about that. So I'm not going to go into any detail, except to say this: that again, conservative estimates would suggest that in terms of today's values, about $75 million came into Barbados, flowed into Barbados as a result of that migration. And if you put into the calculation the fact that Barbados was in depression, you can understand therefore the role that injection would have played. To a large extent, you might say therefore that the remittances kept this economy afloat. Obviously in terms of supplying the purchasing power, which was not there, okay? So that all sorts of investment could be traceable to this influx of Panama. But you could also say too, and this is Morris's point, that Panama money led to significant socio-economic changes. In other words, you can almost see transformation. And the transformation is particularly in terms of the land holding patterns in Barbados. A number of plantations got cut up. And they got cut up. The stimulus was this availability of the money. The people who bought were the people who were either migrants or the families of migrants. So in a sense, when you look at settlement patterns in Barbados, from say the 1910 onwards, you can see new clusters of villages, new houses being built. All of this is the result of that. So that you can argue therefore that what the people left Barbados for, they got. And you can see it on the Barbados landscape. Thank you.
I was beginning to enjoy that. Well, please,
I have the other piece. I have to allow me. See, that was well, bit. That was the bit that I was recruited to do.
That's a coercion. Now he's going to do his own thing.
But I'm not going to be as long because I'm sure you all have other things you want to do. The thing that I was particularly asked to talk about was friendly societies and the extent to which friendly societies could be seen to have assisted or to be agencies of the repatriation. I don't want to call it repatriation because it wasn't here first, but anyhow, bringing back to Barbados Panama, bringing to Barbados Panama money. Now, it could be done in two ways. One, you could look to see how friendly societies in Barbados might have been affected by the inflows of Panama money that I just been talking about. Now, we don't have, as far as I can see, a lot of hard evidence in that area. But you could say, if you look at the pattern, if you look at the way the friendly society movement operated, you know what a friendly society is, I'm not sure. I don't have to explain. Oh, well, a friend. Yes, okay. A friendly society, these friendly societies are an English creation of about the 1820s or the 1830s, and they usually come out of the church, but they spread beyond the church. Basically, there are what you might say mutual aid societies. Mutual aid societies. What to encourage thrift, encourage saving, particularly saving for the bad times, sickness, and particularly death. You know, because it is in fact the contributions that you make on a regular basis to this society which will build up a fund which in fact will assist you when you are sick and therefore unemployed, and when you die or your family dies, but then you can get a benefit to assist with the funeral. That is basically what a friendly society did. And the agriculture in this region introduced that movement here, and it caught on. I mean, it fluctuated, but it caught on. And as I was saying, as I was just saying, you could see a great burst in the activity of the friendly society in the first 2 or 3 decades of the 20th century. And you could say that that is traceable to Panama money, meaning by that that there was more money around. So more people had money to join up and pay the weekly or monthly subscription. And of course, those who ran friendly societies would see the money and go there looking for more people as well. So that the two things together would have ensured, therefore, a great boom in friendly society activity. The second thing that you might say with friendly societies, and this is how it connects to migration, is that it became, in a sense, something that